So I love starting with definitions. When I think about Web 1, 2, and 3, I guess I always think about time periods. Like Web 1 is from maybe, and you can correct me if you're like, that's not correct. I think of it from like 1990 to 2004. It's like the static websites. And then you've got ish like 2005. I bring it all the way up to 2020 when it's social platforms, interactivity, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And then Web 3, I think of it decentralized, open, and of course all the buzzwords like NFTs and metaverse. But how would you describe where we're at today in the world of Web3?
So it's a good definition, and I fully agree with you. I often talk about Web 1, Web 2, Web 3 as the web of read, Web 1, the web of read and write, Web 2. You talk about the social interaction, social platforms, and the web of read, write, and own, Web 3, where you can actually own assets, but also your own data and your own identity in the world of Web 3. One thing to put Web 3 in perspective is Web 1 was also the invention of the cookie. Right at the beginning, 1994, that's when a young engineer at Netscape called Lou Montulli, invented the cookie, just to give websites some intelligence so that they would recognize people when they come instead of starting all over again every time. And he didn't want this to make it trackable. A year later, unfortunately, trackability was invented and then purchased by one of these big platforms company for several $1 billion. But the reality is one thing that's happening is the cookie is going away. Because of everything we know, GDPR, regulation, customer realization that there's so much data about them out there that they don't own and they should own. And there is this shift towards first-party data. And then enters zero-party data, which is, my data is my data, and that's the world of Web 3. And that's the basically time period we are in. People have started to really realize that their identity is theirs, and that by taking back control of it, they're going to expand the possibilities of what they can do, but also who they can be. And I think that's really what's going to be interesting is the big transformation for me that's going to come in the years to come with Web3 is going to be around identity. We talk a lot about self-sovereign identity. I like to talk about self-sovereignty, which is people basically realizing that they can take back more control of their body and their mind and fulfill a life that's much richer than what we could do in the previous versions of the world where you didn't have the realization of the potentiality that are around you.
I love that. So when thinking about the commerce space, I mean, how should companies think about playing in this world? I mean, how not only should their brand be showing up, but then how should they be finding new customers in a world where you can't operate in the same way that you used to operate? You can't attract new customers and track them like you used to. Like, not only should they show up there, but then how should they find new customers and interact with them?
Yeah, so there's lots of ways to skin this cat and answer that question. The reality is, first of all, I mean, you talk about commerce. One of the big changes that is already happening and is going to continue to happen is the fact that people are going to realize that cryptocurrencies are another currency that you can use to make commerce. And I'm amazed by the number of companies that are in an accelerated pace, despite all the ups and downs of cryptos, that are starting to accept or planning to accept cryptocurrencies in the foreseeable future. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, of course, what's interesting is that you can buy digital goods, you can buy an NFT, you can buy, skins for the metaverse, etc. But you can also buy them together with a product as a digital twin, and then they're part of the product, but you can also dissociate them from the product, and then they become brand. So suddenly you have a proposition where commerce and marketing are becoming really, and it's been a while in the making. I've always said when I was, my first role, which was a while ago, I was always fascinated by the competition between sales and marketing. And I always said, well, the two functions really should collaborate. Well, now they have to, because the reality, a single NFT can be a financial proposition, but can also be a brand proposition, a marketing proposition, and can be therefore become an asset. And then you add the people, the role of the people as a community that no longer want to be, but can be much more than consuming your product. They can actually collaborate and co-create with you. And the power of the individual and the community of fans participating truly in your business, because they are not just participating in building the brand. If they participate in building the brand by being active members of a community, they are going to want a stake. They're going to want a cut, and that's why you see this decentralization movement is not just decentralization of technology. It's also, I think, the transformation of more and more people being able to participate and benefit from the internet.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, it's interesting because you see these way more niche communities popping up. And it seems like there's a lot of new opportunities that companies have to reach these much more niche consumers who maybe did not have a group to talk in before. They couldn't find their people. And now all of a sudden you see, NFTs popping up around a space that you've never even heard of, that maybe it was on some subreddit forum, some thread that was like deep down where you couldn't find it. Now all of a sudden people are finding each other and actually have ways to, either gamify it or have a community or have tokens around something, whatever it is. But it's interesting watching all these new opportunities pop up to connect with people.
When I joined Salesforce, I talked with my boss and he said, you need to write a book, Mark. And I said, the working title is, and I've not written it yet, but is Your Brand is Your Community. But it was totally this power of the community to actually play a new role, a very active role, and take ownership of your proposition. But I love the way you say, I often talk indeed about not just communities, but micro communities. And I have this theory that a community should be 10,000, 20,000, 25,000. But if you go to 1 million, 2 million, it's not a community, it's an audience. And we're back to old school marketing. So to me, what brands are going to need to do is to actually continuously segment their communities into micro community to keep that little tribal subculture that you're talking about, so that they really feel that they're one. They all feel like the people in that community are all like me, and I want to be like them, to be with them. It's a little bit like nation forming. You choose the neighborhood, you choose the people you want to hang out based on certain regions, because this place has certain values, certain passions that are more prevalent in this one or amongst this group than amongst that group. And I think that it's going to be fascinating to see how we resist the temptation as communities grow of making them bigger versus keeping them small, which is going to require changing structure, because if you have an audience of 1 million, it's one thing. But if you have 100, 1,000 micro communities of thousands of people, it's going to require community management. It's going to require, a lot of new skills that organizations don't have. And on top of it, which is fascinating, is going back to your question around commerce, those communities are going to be communities that are going to co-create your brand, but also co-grow your business. And you're going to be able to sell them products, and they're going to be able to sell your products for you. So it changes completely the role. And that's what I believe is powerful about decentralization.
Hey, thanks for watching. This segment was made possible by our friends at Salesforce Commerce Cloud. If you're looking for the #1 platform for all your commerce needs, go check out salesforce.com/commerce. And don't forget to subscribe below and tap that little bell icon so you can stay on top of all the amazing new segments and full episodes that we'll be putting out over the coming year with some of the best and most influential commerce leaders out there.